Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to welcome you to today's Global Perspectives Institute, sponsored by Global Ties Alabama. Our topic today is resolving international parental child abduction in America and abroad. And we're very, very fortunate to have a wonderful panel of experts. We're thankful for our moderator, Jacob Inglis, who I will turn the forum over today. Thank you.
So as mentioned, I'm Jacob Inglis, Program Associate here at Global Ties Alabama. I've had the fortune to meet and work with Dr. Hunter and Mr. Ayouby over the past couple of months. Before we get into the topic, I want to introduce both of our speakers in more detail. Let me start with Dr. Noelle Hunter. She's located here in Huntsville, Alabama. She is the co-founder and served as the president of the iSTAND Parent Network. iSTAND is a nonprofit organization that empowers parents to recover their children from international parental child abduction. iSTAND advocates for public policy reform and works to prevent and end the crime of international parental child abduction against children and families. Dr. Hunter has also personally experienced international parental child abduction. She successfully recovered her child after an abduction to Mali in 2014. Dr. Hunter has served as an invited witness in front of the Helsinki Commission and has provided congressional testimony several times regarding the issue of international parental child abduction. She's a political science lecturer at the University of Huntsville in Alabama, where she currently teaches a special topics course on international parental child abduction. And I'd also like to introduce Mr. Ayouby. Mr. Ayouby is the owner of the Ayouby law firm in Tripoli, Lebanon. He's the president and founder of IHOPE, which stands for International Help, Offer, Protect, and Empower. IHOPE is a civil society organization that works to advance global children's rights. In 2018, Mr. Ayouby was integral to the return of 4 American children who were abducted internationally to Lebanon. He currently represents another parent whose children are currently abducted in the country. IHOPE and iSTAND have recently forged a partnership that seeks to achieve much greater awareness, prevention, and cooperation among stakeholders to end the issue of international parental child abduction. I'd like to invite Dr. Hunter and Mr. Ayouby to introduce themselves in a little bit more detail. Just tell us about your experiences and your work, please.
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Director Shaib and Jacob, and for all of you who have tuned in for this Global Perspectives Institute. As Jacob, as you indicated, I'm the former president and a co-founder of iSTAND Parent Network. And iSTAND, our mission is to empower parents to recover their children from international parental child abduction. And we also work to create policy reform and solutions to prevent and end this crime against children and families, as you suggested earlier. And it comes out of personal experience. In 2011, my then 4-year-old daughter was abducted from our home. We lived in Kentucky at the time, abducted from our home in Moorhead, Kentucky, and taken to Mali, West Africa. And at the time, I had no idea what international parental child abduction actually was or is. And so I first want to define it. According to U.S. Department of State, international parental child abduction, or IPCA, is the denial of access, it is the unlawful removal or retention of a child outside of his or her country of habitual residence. And it's a global problem. It just doesn't happen in the United States. As a matter of fact, it is a global crime. And we have parents whose children have been taken from the United States to many nations throughout the earth, and then vice versa. There are abductions to the United States from other nations. But in 2011, on Christmas Day, I dropped my daughter off at the McDonald's to her father for his portion of the holiday time sharing. That was according to the custodial agreement. And I knew when he got her that he was going to take her. He just asked questions about her passport, which the judge had ordered that I keep because we believed that he was a flight risk with her. I didn't, unbeknownst to us, he was able to get a passport from the the embassy of Mali in Washington, D.C. And so they were able to travel out of the country unbeknownst to me and under the radar. And so I realized that on New Year's Day when she didn't come back. And so I just set myself to, one, find out what had happened. I didn't even know about IPCA, but I found the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and then found the State Department, who was the central authority for this issue, and just got to work bringing my daughter home. It took 2.5 years and many nights of tears and delays and frustration and progress, and linking up with allies, both in the State Department and Congress, at the FBI. All of us worked for about 2.5 years to bring my daughter home. And I'm happy to say that she came home in 2014. And out of that experience with other parents, I established ICM Parent Network to help other parents bring their children home. This is an incredibly pernicious crime against children and the parents and families who suffer. And so our mission is to end that suffering.
Thank you. Mr. Ayouby, if you'd introduce yourself as well, please.
May I present myself first? I am Mohamad Al Ayouby, attorney at law, founder of iHope. Before I start, I would like to apologize for my voice. I got a very bad flu, so really sorry. As iHope, it was founded in 2018, headquartered in Tripoli, Lebanon. iHope is an independent entity, has a team of judges, lawyers, law students, and social advocates. iHope specializes in child protection in general and parental child abduction in particular, in efforts to shed light on the matter and help return children home where they belong. Also, we are specialized in legal studies, advocacy campaigns, a training center for lawyers on strategic litigation field and practice. As a lawyer, I had the honor to bring back abducted children to USA. It started in early 2017 when Matar, and without the knowledge of his ex-wife, Michelle Littleton, abducted 3 children from their American home, alleging the necessity to visit their ill grandfather in Lebanon. The father filed a lawsuit in the religious court in Tripoli to obtain sole custody of the children, knowing that the marriage was not consummated within the jurisdiction of the said religious court of Tripoli, which fundamentally indicates the court's lack of jurisdiction in the case. On April 7th, in 2017, a decision was issued by County Court in California stating the immediate return of the children to the United States of America and granting full and comprehensive custody to their mother, the plaintiff, Mrs. Michelle Littleton. On October 1st, 2017, we start in Lebanon. We filed an objection in the religious court on the decision granting custody to the children to Mr. Matar in Lebanon. And on December the 27th, 2017, the religious court in Tripoli issued a judgment declaring lack of subject matter jurisdiction and announcing the annulment of the decision granting custody to Mr. Matar. So let me stop in this. This is the first time when there's not a precedent when we win in a religious court while they had a marriage, Islamic marriage before in America. And this is why I start the strategic litigation matter. Anyway, Matar's attorney appealed the judgment issued by the religious court in Tripoli. But after concluding the trial, the Court of Appeal issued a judgment considering the Islamic Religious Court in Lebanon have no jurisdiction concerning child custody dispute. After the affirmation of the lack of jurisdiction of the Lebanese religious court concerning the dispute, we filed a civil lawsuit to implement the execution of the American court, and we finish when we brought back the children to USA. This is for the legal matter here.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'd like to speak a bit to Dr. Hunter about her work. If you could just speak a bit about iStand, some of the goals and work that you do there.
I'm very happy to. I can, just honestly say that iStand is a labor of love, within our parent community, which is very tight. One of our mottos is that we're all in a club that no one wants to be in. Like no parent ever wants to experience this type of separation from their children. No parent wants to be separated from their children generally. But in the case of international parental child abduction, it is such a difficult issue. So not only do parents have to fight for the return of their children here in the United States, working through local courts, hopefully working cooperatively with the State Department, which is again the central authority. It's the player that parents like me need to work cooperatively with to work with a foreign nation. Parents need to work with their congressional delegation, law enforcement at the local, state, and federal level. It's a very, very complex process to return a child. And if you think about it, that's just on the domestic side. And then, so parents who are seeking help to return their children domestically here also have to work with a foreign nation and work within those legal processes, much of which, they vary by nation. Some nations are very good about working with our government and working with parents to return children, and many are not. And so iStand comes about to fill in some of the gaps and to help really truly empower parents to, by our own experience, here's a roadmap. Here's what might work for you. If this doesn't work, another parent may have had successes. For example, in my case, I had a very, very good relationship with the State Department. And we try to suggest that parents really build a relationship with the Office of Children's Issues continually to make sure that that agency is advocating forcefully for the return of their children. But we also suggest that, you do need to talk with your congressional agents. We try for parents who are trying to prevent their children from being taken. We suggest that they enroll their children in the Passport Alert Issuance Program, and then also in a relatively new program through the Department of Homeland Security, the Prevent Abduction Program. And so iStand tries to take all of these ideas and resources, knowing that each case is somewhat different. But from our perspective, because there's such a variation in how the children were taken, to what nation they were taken to, whether that nation is a party to international treaty called the Hague Convention that in theory helps return children, so many dynamics. And so we try to cut through a lot of the learning curve or shorten the learning curve for parents and really empower them. In the end, we tell parents, you have to lead, you have to be the attorney, the football coach, the basketball player, all of the metaphors the parents have to be to return their children. But we try to do that. And we've made very good friends at the State Department. We have very good friends in Washington, and now very good friends in Lebanon and elsewhere in this world. And we're really trying to, again, reshape the narrative about what international parental child abduction is. As a matter of fact, November is IPCA Awareness Month, because most people really think that it's two parents that are feuding and not laws that are being broken and children that are suffering. So iStand has come along here in the last 8 years to do that. And one of the ways in which we do that, Jacob, you and your colleagues from UH attended, and Director Scheit mentioned it earlier. We have an annual conference in Washington, DC. And so parents come from all throughout the nation and internationally as well to try to connect with other parents and learn from each other, to meet with stakeholders, to advocate for their children. We go to embassies and try to seek help of foreign nations. And so we really are trying to replicate a whole of government approach to bring kids home.
You mentioned that there is very much a learning curve for a parent responding to the abduction of their child. Could you go through a bit of the standard process, such as it is, of what a parent goes through, who they talk to, things of that nature?
Yeah, thank you. It's an important question. And, I can say that even though my daughter has been home for 8 years, I vividly remember those early days. And I most of all remember not knowing what IPCA was. And so quickly a parent has to figure out, if my child has been taken, or I think that they've been taken and they've been taken internationally, what do I do? Naturally, a Google search is going to lead probably first to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And that was my first step. So I called them, had a wonderful caseworker there who recommended that I also open a case with the Department of State's Office of Children's Issues. And so I opened a case there. I had to get legal representation in both the United States and in Mali. In the United States, it was no problem at all. You know, I'm from a small community. I had a fantastic attorney, and it was a small town, and everybody in my town knew what had happened. And so I got an attorney in the US. Getting an attorney in the other nation is much more challenging because often a seeking parent, as we like to call them, you know, doesn't know the legal process or an attorney to contact in another nation. In my case, I was very, very fortunate that some women from Mali that I knew who were just absolutely outraged that my daughter had been taken at such a young age by her father, and they knew that she needed to be with both parents, or with her mother as well. They recommended the only female attorney in Mali, and she was formidable. And so I linked up there. And in the case, as Mohamad said earlier, our I Stand parent, Michelle Littleton, was able to find a very good attorney in Mohamad, who returned her children home from Lebanon. And he's helped other children come home from the United States as well. And so once a parent can connect, get a case open with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the State Department, get attorneys on both sides, if they have the money for it, it's a real problem and it's very expensive, then they need to get other players involved or other actors involved. We recommend parents reach out to their congressional delegation so that that member of Congress can be in communication with the State Department, and in some cases in direct communication with that nation. In Michelle Littleton's case, her Congressman Bill Posey and her Senator Marco Rubio were in close contact with representatives from the Lebanese government and Mr. Ayouby. In my case, I lived in Kentucky at the time. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was very, very involved in my case. And so we just, encourage parents that this is a full court press. That is the metaphor that we use. And when they don't know what to do, they can call us. And we have a parent advocacy function that also, empowers them, because frankly, this is such a grievous process. A lot of parents they cannot do it. It's very, very difficult. And we've known parents to give up. And, we exist both as a stopgap so parents don't give up, and to push them on to help recover their children. So it's a process from beginning to end. And obviously the best outcome is for children to come home or parents to get access to their children abroad.
I know we've spoken a lot about how for parents, this is such a complicated topic. There's very little knowledge. The information is, not out there as much as it should be. So I guess for parents, this is a very expensive, time-consuming thing. What resources are out there? There's iStand. How do you go about coordinating all of these things?
Those are a very good question, because coordination of resources is absolutely necessary. Again, from beginning to hopeful, happy ending. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of resources, financial resources out there for parents who are seeking reunification. Now, if the reunification is in place, there are funds from the Department of, or if the reunification is likely to happen, there are funds from the Department of Justice that can help pay for parents to travel to that nation to appear in court, and there's reunification funds to bring a child home. But in the interim, parents have to mobilize those resources themselves. We consider the iStand conference as a pretty important resource, because it's there that parents can use the experience of other parents. They can meet with their representatives from the State Department, et cetera. But unfortunately, there are no development funds or resource funds, legal funds available for parents to, fight their case in the United States and Mali. And so quite a few parents, and there are some notable cases, Dr. Chris Brand comes to mind, in which parents can spend upwards of $250,000 to $300,000. I've known a parent to spend up to $500,000 trying to return their children home. And I can say quite candidly that most parents do not have that kind of money. I know that I didn't. And so I thank God that I was in a community that raised a lot of money for me. And in the absence of, and this is what we tell parents, in the absence of, having what you need to fight this in the courts financially, you've got to raise those resources elsewhere. And for us, pressure is a resource. Pressure from our government upon that nation and vicariously or directly upon that taking family, abducting family, is a resource for us. And so, we encourage parents to think very broadly about what resources are. And one of ISAN's aspirations, honestly, is to tap into foundation and other types of support that we could offer parents legal assistance in that case. My attorney took my case pro bono, and I know that that's not always the case. And so, sorry for a little bit of a long answer, but it's a question that I'm pretty passionate about. We have to, that phrase, you got to do whatever you have to do, is no more appropriate than it is here. And oftentimes parents have to get by with what they have.
I think it's very, very clear that the onus is on the parents to take the initiative for this process. I'd like to talk a bit about the federal response to this issue. How does the federal government respond? The average response from caseworkers in the State Department and things like that. How does that normally go?
Thank you for the question. And so since we are taking this as a special topics course together, we know that one of the terms that we characterize here is fragmentation. So there's fragmented response from multiple levels of government. I said to you, and I will say to anyone, that I had an extraordinary response from the State Department. I think that was for a couple of reasons. First, one, I'm a political scientist, and so I know how government works. And so I knew what I could leverage with the State Department for my case. I knew what I would leverage with Congress to leverage or the State Department for my case. And so, and then I also, I'm a publicist in my former life. And so I knew how to mobilize a very public case that brought action and scrutiny on Mali. And Mali is a nation that really doesn't like a lot of scrutiny to be put on them. They're a very private nation. And so, I used that to my advantage. I raised the profile of my daughter's case. And so that so many public officials had to take notice. The State Department could use that momentum themselves, both here in the United States and at the embassy in Mali. They were very good about conducting welfare and whereabouts checks on my daughters to make sure that she was, if not safe, that she was alive. And so I got proof of life from them sometimes. And the response that I got, though, was unfortunately not the norm. It is not the standard. There's a great deal of variation. I do know parents that have not gotten great responses and consistent responses from either their country officers at the State Department, have not been able to get satisfactory and consistent responses from members of Congress. Sometimes it's hit or miss with the Department of Justice. There's very clear criteria by which the DOJ can seek to go after, extradite, or try to use legal law enforcement means to bring, return an abductor and hopefully return the children. But there's many different responses. And what we also know, Jacob, from our class, is that in recent years, in 2014, the Sean and David Goldman Act was passed. It's the, I can't remember the long acronym for it just right now, but that act was passed in 2014 to give the State Department more tools and a more robust ability to respond and hold nations accountable and really address this issue. And I can say that there has been some progress, namely in the areas of prevention. I believe the State Department now has a very strong prevention program that has come over time and through pressure from parent groups like mine and the Coalition to End International Parental Child Abduction. But you know, if I put 10 cases before you right now, which I could recall 10 of them, some have great responses and have gotten their children back. Some have great responses and have not gotten their children back. And some parents have not had great responses at all, adequate, I should say, adequate responses at all from the entities that are tasked with this. And this is that's a non-starter for us at ISTAN, in particular, because I know what can happen when resources are mobilized to bring children home. And frankly, if I could just say this, you know, I recognize some of the limitations that our government has, the State Department in particular, because they can't tell sovereign nations, you know, what to do in some ways. But we can incentivize and leverage our relationships with foreign nations so that they will act accordingly to follow their own due processes to return children home. And so fragmentation is how I would characterize it. And if I could just add one more thing to that. So that is where ISTAN has recognized that we have to expand our mission, both to bring new information, new research, new strategies to bear through what we hope is the development of a think tank on this issue. And we have to expand our global partnerships with Mohamad and I hope, so that we are giving our government more tools and more opportunities to work with us to bring kids home. It's not easy, but it doesn't have to be this hard.
Certainly. And I'd like to talk a bit more about the partnership with iHope. What do these partnerships bring to the table? You know, how can you leverage those resources?
Okay. I'm smiling just because I didn't expect, I don't think Mr. Mohamad, or my dear Mr. Mohamad Ayouby expected iHope either. But it just goes to show, and I'm going to come back to the example of Michelle Littleton, who was an ISTAN parent who, you know, when she was trying to get her children back from Lebanon, an incredibly complex case, somehow she found us online. And Michelle is like me. I call her my twin because she was absolutely relentless. There was no alternative but for her children to come home. And she connected with attorney Ayouby, and together they brought our children home. And we were introduced to Mohamad at this time. And iHope didn't exist then, but through our conversations and through our work cooperatively for Michelle and the Littleton children, you know, we struck up this rapport between him and me and Randall Murphy, who was another co-founder, and Michelle. And, you know, the conversations led quite naturally to us inviting Mohamad to join us for our conference in just a couple of months ago in September and October. We invited him over with help from the embassy in Beirut, who also recognized what was necessary and granted a visa for him to come with no trouble at all. And, you know, we just began talking even before he came about the need for us to really cooperate and bring awareness to this in the Middle East, because every nation doesn't see an abduction as an abduction. You know, culture plays an incredible role. And so we want to be respectful of how other nations view this issue, and the way for us to be respectful, but to also educate and prevent, was us to form this partnership that, again, came together quite organically. And, you know, at our conference in Washington, we signed a formal memorandum of agreement in which ISTAN would do certain things and iHope would take certain actions, all with the goal of bringing more children, reuniting more children, making this issue known both in the Middle East and more well known in the United States as well. And we envision a partnership that's going to be lasting over time. I can tell you, and I'm teasing Mohamad just a little bit, in the couple of months that this partnership has been going, the level of expertise and the research that they have produced on this issue is really breathtaking. And so I'm happy that we're at stage one of what I believe is going to be a long-term partnership to educate, to help, to empower, using iHope's mission, you know, to help children not to suffer from being separated from another parent. And so that's my side of the partnership, but I know Mohamad also has a view.
Do I start now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Thank you, Jacob. And thank you, Dr. Noel, as well. Let us start with the IPCA. It's International Parental Child Abduction. And when we say international, so it's like, unfortunately, it's like a disease. If you can see, it happened in every country. And since we are talking international, it must that we start some international collaboration. And Dr. Noel Hunter was a mentor in this, really. She urged us here in Lebanon to start such a company, and we started in this level. And as Dr. Noel Hunter said, we starting to focus exactly on the studies, on the legal studies, on the strategic studies, since and as Dr. Noel said in previous answers, when you have a problem, a communication problem, even between lawyers worldwide, it's a two different system. I mean, a judicial systems. So it's very hard to help or to let understand an average American or Lebanese or from anyone. It's very hard to let him understand the different procedures in the different country. And it's a very big problem, really, believe me. And especially when we are talking in a very difficult system like Lebanon. Uh, if we want to go through on the family laws, for example, the custody, as I told Dr. Noel Hunter before, we have like 10 to 12 regulation concerning custody in Lebanon. So, for example, if an American girl made a marriage with a Sunni, a Lebanese Sunni, she will have like 12 years old, and she can keep her child for 12 years. If she married a Shi'i from Lebanon, she can kept her child in custody just for 2 years. So even in a same country, we have many and different regulations. So first of all, when we are talking international, we are trying to let understand the IPCA in the Middle East, especially now after the collaboration and the MOU between us and Iceland. So this is the first concern. And when we are talking international, it means that it will happen in any country. We should also act like international, not just for understanding, even for acting. If we can make more activities, international activities, like Iceland start with many other organizations. Now we are trying to seeking international goals concerning IPCA, like international newsletter, like international advocacy. We have so many ideas, and this MOU, like it put us on the track, in the international track. And when we are talking about international, so we should act international. We should make international advocacy, not just for the domestic.
Thank you. And you also have brought up the fact that there are different legal codes, especially in Lebanon, religious codes for various religions. Could you speak a bit more about that, about how there's this difference that we've spoken about prior between the secular and religious courts in Lebanon?
Let me start answering this question by clarifying the situation. It's not just in Lebanon, it's in almost all the Arabic countries. And this is the purpose that this Arabic country didn't sign the Hague Convention, because the religious court ruled the civil family law in the Arabic countries, and for that they are non-signatory to the Hague Convention. And when we are presented with an IPCA case, we are faced mainly three obstacles as a lawyers. The first obstacle is that Lebanon is non-signatory to the Hague Convention, and family laws matters are governed by religious laws. So this is exactly why the Arabic country don't belong to the Hague Convention. And there are too many, since we have in Lebanon, for example, like 18 religious sects, and each governs personal status according to its own regulations. So as I told you, let us take child custody, for example. For the Catholic Christians, custody is granted till the age of 7. For Orthodox Christians, it's for the age of 15. For the Sunni Muslim, it's for 12, and for the Shia Muslim, it's for 2. So, and so on, we can keep in mind, this is just as one single country regarding one single topic. Even in the other Arabic country, they suffer from this problem. Iraq, for example, Saudi Arabia, they are governed by a religious court. And as I told you, when we are talking about religious court, it means that they are under the rule and under the information of Holy Quran and of Sirah of Prophet Muhammad. It's not a moderate law, so it's not a civil law. And this is a very big problem for the international countries, especially when they governed by a civil law. So this is a main problem. Also, the second thing, and this is exactly what we done in Lebanon, not just in Littleton's case, also in Rachel Smith's case. Lebanon is non-signatory to the Hague Convention, so you can't apply the Hague Convention on this case, on any case in Lebanon. So we try to make, as I told you in the beginning, we try to make a strategic litigation. So we try to use the civil law in the religious court to win our cases. I will give you an example. In the two American cases, and sorry for long, but we need to clarify some point in this. In the two American cases, we took an American court order, but you can't implement the American court order because it's belong to the civil law. So you can't implement it in Lebanon since they are referred to the religious court. We tried to use an American regulation in the religious court. I will give you an example. For Littleton's case, her ex and her, they made an Islamic marriage even before the civil marriage in USA. So usually the religious court recognize this Islamic marriage even if it held in USA. In our case, we demonstrate that the one who made this religious marriage in USA don't have any jurisdiction since the American regulations don't recognize like this kind of marriage. So the religious court in Lebanon accept our motion, and she gave us an order. Also in Rachel Smith's cases. But the problem here in Lebanon that it's not like law. So we are talking about many different court orders in the same religious court. So in this case, as I told you, I don't know how to try to let you understand it. You can't apply as a precedent in every case. So even if I have the same circumstances with another case, not Littleton, I can't guarantee that the judge will give us the same order that he made it in the Littleton's case. So they don't have a stability in the religious court. It's not like a civil law. So you refer to an article, and it's obvious for everybody. So this is the big obstacle we suffer here in Lebanon when we are talking about international parental abduction cases. The second important thing, the Arabic countries and even Lebanon, they don't recognize the abduction as a crime. So usually when we have similar cases in the USA, and after the wife or the husband abducted the children to an Arabic country, they issued for him in America an international warrant. It's a crime. In the Arabic country, they didn't recognize the parental abduction as a crime. And if you want to give you an example, I will give you a million of domestic examples that some cases that the wife didn't see the children since 8 years and 9 years. It's not an abduction for the Lebanese regulation. And this is a very big problem. And one of our goals between ISTAND and I Hope is to start making a bill and to represent it in every Arabic country to legitimate a crime for this abduction in this Arabic country. Okay, we have many goals. I am waiting Dr. Noel Hunter to talk about our goals. But one of our goals is to make this bill in every Arabic country, because if we can make it, we will have less problem in the IPCA. And sorry again for my voice, but really I have a very big flu. Sorry again.
Thank you. And we spoke shortly previously about how one of IHOPE's goals and activities is the production of research on international parental child abduction. What type of information are you producing?
Very good question. In a legal way, let me tell you that this field is a new, the IPCA. You have many ideas in this field that no one talks about it yet because it's very new. I was thinking today with something called international arbitration. We are thinking about a new mutual MOUs because, and as I told you before, the Arabic countries didn't sign for Hague, and Hague contain like 103 countries. Okay, we are trying to seek alternative. We might achieve a MOU, a single MOU between United States and Lebanon, or United States and Qatar, for example, to reduce the IPCA, because we can't tell the Arabic country to sign the Hague Convention, especially when it contains like 100 countries. Okay, I know, and I don't have the right to talk about the Department of State, but just in previously or in short term, the Department of State can achieve similar MOU in the Arabic countries. Okay, it's more easier than another country like Bangladesh or Ethiopia or anything. So for that, it's a very good idea and very new idea to make MOUs between two countries, okay, because they will not respond to the Hague Convention. So this is another activity for I hope on the legal. Even for the studies now, we should seek many studies in this field because they don't have all the information about me, anyone. They don't have, like, we don't have a unified ways of think and legal ways, and I will give you many examples in this. Even the signatory countries, Japan, for example, they are signatory to the Hague Convention, but they don't apply it because they are relying to some legal or some legal article in The Hague about the implementation. So we need a very big margin of studies to try to talk about The Hague, to try to talk about alternatives, to try to talk about arbitration for the first time. We have an arbitration in the very big commercial cases and okay, blah, 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 in the civil. The main of arbitration should start with the husband and wife, even if they divorce. So we are seeking a very big march of fields in the legal. And since this IPCA is a very new legal field, so we need many study, not just the IHO. So for that, our main goal is to focus on these studies. And believe me, when you try to unify this kind of thinking, so you can achieve very good advocacy campaigns because it's related. Okay, you can seek exactly where you should put your finger in the Arabic countries since of the studies. So this is a new legal field, and it needs a very huge number of studies.
Thank you very much for that answer. And we're running up on our time here, so I want to shift to a quick Q&A session. If anybody in the audience has any questions for Dr. Hunter or Mr. Ayouby, you're welcome to speak or type them in the chat, and we can answer them there. So just let us know if there's any questions. And while we're waiting for that, I will ask one a question of my own. We've talked quite a bit about how there's really a lack of knowledge about IPCA, both domestically here in the US and abroad. Dr. Hunter, could you speak just a bit about the research center you mentioned earlier and the goals of that in addressing the lack of research?
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much, Jacob, for that question. And it really is where we need to be right now. It's the exact question that needs to be asked and answered. So again, referring back to the special topics course that I'm teaching, first, I'm impressed with the 14 students in there that were able to, in the course of about 10 weeks, get and ask and answer questions that we have been asking in this cause for, I've been in it for almost 10 years, and there are mentors that precede me. And so in the course of these fine scholars asking and answering questions about what is IPCA, why is response fragmented, why does Congress have a limited view of this issue, why is there different actions going on in different agencies when there should be a synergetic approach, the answer that we kept coming back to is a lack of data and a lack of current research on this issue. If you Google international parental child abduction and are trying to find some research about it, you won't find much after 2000, like 2000, 1998 to 2000 was a real time of research on the issue because it was when it was first coming to public salience here in the United States. But other than an occasional brief from the Congressional Research Service when they're researching it to answer legislators' question, and outside of articles and legal briefs, you won't find any current information on international parental child abduction, how it happens, why it happens, how the freedom of movement of people between nations is increasing and how that's increasing the problem, how different cultures perceive or don't perceive this issue. And so we agreed that this dearth of research was creating suboptimal outcomes in Congress. Congress doesn't know how to provide ensure its oversight function over the State Department, over Justice Department, and Homeland Security, all of which have a piece of this issue, if they don't have current information. It continues to be relegated falsely to a custodial dispute when it's not. And so our goal this semester has been uncovering that dearth of research And now what we would like is to establish a center at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, the Center on International Parental Child Abduction Research and Prevention. And our goal over at least the first few years is to first, again, update the literature. If there was a publication by the General Accounting Office in 2000 about airlines and how they are used to spirit children away, why hasn't there been an update? 2000? And so our goal is to, again, see what's out there. We know what's out there, rather, and now create robust, well-informed research products that drive the conversation, that raise the awareness domestically and internationally, that gives Congress more power over its both constituent advocacy, because this is a constituent issue as well as an oversight issue, as well as a lawmaking issue for them. It sets up a different set of information that can be complementary to the State Department, which does produce reports, does produce data about this, but Congress and other stakeholders, both domestically and internationally, need to be able to triangulate information and data to produce better outcomes. And so this center would do that. One of our first goals would be to your goal actually is to standardize the many data sets that are out there and give us a common operating picture from what it is and what it needs to be. We believe, and I think there's evidence to suggest that the number of abductions is artificially low. Like in the most recent report, most recent reports between 600 and 800 children leave annually or abducted. We know it's higher, but one of the reasons we know it's higher but unreported is parents don't know who to report to and how to report. We believe that if Congress knew the true scale of this issue through informed research products and data products and expert testimony, they could act better. They could require nations to act better. And so our center, we have an opportunity on December 1st to share our pitch with the Dean of the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, with hopes that it will emerge successfully from the Provost's office and we can get this thing going. We have such a wonderful foundation based on what you all have done this semester, based on our already international partnerships. And shout out to Global Ties Alabama, actually, because you all are reminding us at every turn that this needs to be a citizen engaged approach as well. And so when we can create a research center that gives citizens information and power to have conversations with people in other nations who are stakeholders on this, we know that we will again, create a better common operating picture and resolve abductions, because more people know, and the more you know, the better you do.
Thank you very much for that answer. Are there any other questions at this time? Well, I think with that, let's end it here. I want to thank both of our speakers, Dr. Hunter and Mr. Ayouby, for spending their time to come and talk to us about international parental child abduction. They've taken time out of their day to come here. So thank you both again for your participation in this, and thank you to the members of the audience as well. Ms. Shipe, would you like to say a closing word?
Thank you, Jacob, for this panel discussion. You were more than the moderator. You helped us to organize and to achieve being able to have two very dynamic panelists. And I think Global Ties Alabama, thank you, Dr. Hunter, for your shout out, but we are privileged this afternoon to provide a substantive example of empowerment. I hear seeds being planted to increase awareness building, not just locally and nationally, but internationally. What a wonderful partnership with Lebanon. We've actually had the honorary consul for Lebanon here in Alabama, and I'm going to make sure that he gets a copy of this recording. The cultural competencies that your initiative will build is incredibly important. And I love the theme of mobilization of resources both agency support and financial resources, government pressure. This is wonderful. And I am so privileged for our organization to provide a initial forum for this information sharing. We look forward to many more, and we thank you for the work that you're doing. If you need any letters of support to UAH, since we are one of their partners, we'd be very happy to do that as
Thank you.
well.
Wonderful. We will definitely take you up on that. Thank you. Although I already told the dean that we that we were going to be on this today.
Great. And you should know that Global Perspectives Institute began as a MOU between UAH and Global Ties Alabama in 2009. So we're following the same pattern, and I know that this research center will add tremendous value locally and globally. Thank you all for this, and what a wonderful way to begin our season of gratitude here in the U.S. as we go through Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for I Stand and I Hope, and look forward to your continued success.